Hey folks, can you hear me? We'll begin in a couple minutes, right about 1300. You're on.
We're hot?
Yeah.
Should be.
Kick it off.
Sure.
Yeah, just figure, introduce a little bit. Admin notes, and then turn it
Okay.
over to you. I'm still on, okay. Hey folks, Rob Monto here from the Army Rapid Capabilities Office. Just wanted to have a couple admin notes up front here, and then we'll kick it off for the open door brief. So first, obviously want to thank AFCEA for hosting us today, so really appreciate that. And then thanks to all of you for attending. If some folks have known or don't know, this is our second open door briefing. Last one we did was at AUSA Global Force. I thought there was a great turnout there for our first open door briefing, and we had some great capabilities talking again about alternative PNT, as well as some big data for cyber ops. So I thought that was a great venue. Some other admin notes. These slides will be posted both to the AFCEA site. They'll post them out, as well as the Army Rapid Capabilities Office website, as well as our Vulcan workspace. And for those of you that don't know what Vulcan is, you'll hear about that a little bit more in the upcoming slides. And then lastly, for those of you that are scheduled for one-on-ones with us in two specific technology areas, those start at 14:15 across the convention center on the second floor landing of the Reynolds Street lobby. So for those of you that are scheduled, that's where we'll be hosting them and starting them at 14:15. So with that, I think I have just a little bit after 1300. I'd like to kick it off for our second open door briefing and hand it off to the Director of the Army Rapid Capabilities Office, Mr. Doug Wiltsey.
Good afternoon. Everybody hear me? Yeah, I was waiting for the applause. So one, thanks for coming today. We've started to build a little momentum in these kinds of things, and I think they're going to be very, very useful for us just to stay in touch with what industry's doing and get a feel for other options as we move forward in some fairly hard problems. What I'm going to do is I'm going to walk you through kind of an overview of what the Rapid Capabilities Office is. I'm going to introduce Rob Monto. He's the guy you want to talk to. He knows everything. I'm going to hand some back over to him for some charts, and then we can open up for some dialogue. Go ahead. So if you missed this morning, it's okay because you're going to hear it all. If you were there this morning, you're going to hear it again. It's okay. The Rapid Capabilities Office was stood up by the Secretary of the Army back the 31st of August is when we rolled it out last year. Really with a focus on trying to get after those strategic gaps that were emerging with the development or the reemergence of near-peer competitors plus the violent extremists. And so when we looked at the 4+1, what we saw was that while we were engaged in 16 years of war, which was more a counterinsurgency fight than anything, what had happened was near-peer competitors had taken some advantages with technology, studied what the Americans had done in the theater, and then applied those technologies with doctrine and with con-ops to build an emerging capability that would put us in a contested environment and put us in some cases at a disadvantage. And so the Secretary, then Secretary Fanning, who had come from the Air Force, was familiar with the Air Force Rapid Capabilities Office, decided he wanted to stand it up, and so we did. As I said this morning, the board of directors that makes all the decisions for the Rapid Capability Office is the Secretary, the Chief, and the Army Acquisition Executive. The focus is really on the ability to rapid prototype to answer a strategic gap that came from a combatant commander that has no solution today in the pipeline that can be fielded in 1 to 5 years. And so you'll see here in a second, we're different than the REF, we're different than the enduring programs, and I'll talk about that. But really what we're focused on is just those things that that have been defined as a strategic gap. And what you can see here is the first one is cyber, second is electronic warfare. Survivability was pooled in that strategic gap. It's being done by for the ground, it's being done by PEO Ground Combat Systems in the application of APS, and then in the air with applications for the aircraft, and then survivability, and then position, navigation, and timing. What do you do with all of the sensors and all of the nav systems that we have are dependent on GPS when GPS goes away? And so it's been proven in at least 2 combatant commands where GPS has been denied, and how do you fight in that environment? The interesting part there is that with these software-defined radios and a lot of the applications that are on these vehicles, timing is as important, if not more important, than position and navigation. Because without timing, the radios can get out of sync, and when they get out of sync, they don't talk. Now you have a problem that you're not sure where you are, and there's no way to communicate. And so providing that capability in a GPS-denied environment is very, very critical. Today, we're going to have, I call it speed dating for lack of a better term, but we have these we have interactions with industry. Today's one is going to be on non-GPS PNT solutions, observations, suggestions. We really just want to get an idea of what is out there that we can put on combat vehicles and combat service support vehicles. So that's, and the ideas, and you'll see this concept over and over and over again. You're going to see 2 concepts that roll out from us on how we stay engaged with industry. One is we're going to take an idea or a problem, and we're going to take one of these kinds of venues because everyone's already here, and throw it out. So today is artificial intelligence to support electronic warfare, and how do I do P&T in a GPS denied environment and not depend on GPS? Just give me a suggestion. What that'll allow us to do is get information. We can take that, we'll put it in Vulcan, you'll put it in Vulcan, he's going to talk about Vulcan. It's a great thing that Special Operations Command has, is a database where you can load information up. But the idea is that it gives us an interaction. The short period of time we're together is really driven to get to the point, because we want to meet as many people as we can, and we've got very smart people here that'll be able to understand the concept quickly. And if we see something that we really want to pursue, we're going to reach out and say, okay, we'd like to talk to you, we'd like to talk to you, we'd like to talk to you. How we go forward with that, it all depends on the solution and how we can create an environment. So today, we'll have RKO in the room to be able, not to talk about those kinds of things, but just understanding what's going on. And she'll be in the back of her head. It's Megan over here. Best KO in the United States Army, right there. We'll be working to figure out if this is viable, how do we move that forward? And so that's one way. The second way that you're going to see us are with things called fly-offs. I call them rodeos. We're going to have periods where we need to see what the best of breed of kit is for an area. I give you the example you're going to see here in the near future, which is mounted EW, electronic support with potential electronic attack, direction finding being the most important piece. We want to have a fly-off out at Yuma where we just have folks bring in kit. We're going to set up targets. We'll give you, we'll work the signals of interest so we can do a little training on it. But then it's just bring them out and can you find the signals and can you tell me where they are? Accuracy will be a dimension of it. Integration on a vehicle is going to be a different dimension on it. If we can do this easy, that's better than I've got to pull the vehicle out and take it back to a depot and take it apart. That's impossible. So, but you're going to see those kinds of things where it's bring it and we want to pick the best of breed. So go ahead. So I mentioned that we're different than the REF. We're different from the enduring programs, and here's kind of how. The REF, the Rapid Equipping Force, is an organization I think a lot of people know that have been around the Army. They reach out to units directly, think division and below, for whatever those guys are needing. They can write their own requirement, they can buy their own kit, they run their own tests, they are self-sustained. Their focus is really 0 to 2 years, but really they want to be 0 to 6 months. They want to be really fast and responsive. And so they work at a unit level below us. At the bottom you see the enduring programs. So these are the institutional programs that are based on the JCIDS process. They're based on the 5,000. They're going to go milestone A, B, C, all the way through. They are designed for all elements of war. They're designed for all geographic and environmental conditions. They take a while. And then you have us in the middle. It's a strategic gap based on a combatant commander's requirement in the threat that he sees. And so we're looking to do urgent, immediate, or emerging requirements, 1 to 5 years, prototype it, make a decision to field, and then field it. We only field to that combatant commander. We only field to that requirement. We do not drift down into fielding for the entire Army. It allows us to get in, as I said this morning, close the operational risk gap for the commander to where he can get to a point where he can say he can fight it, and then we're out. And then the enduring program will come on. Now they're not isolated. One of the things I didn't talk about this morning was the way we stay small and fast is by utilizing the organizational structure in the United States Army today. So we have an EW program for Europe. We're potentially going to have an EW program for Korea. The idea here is that we utilize those subject matter experts that are already within the Army organization. So think the PM for Electronic Warfare, Colonel Marty Hagenston. Think I2WD within the CERDEC up at APG. Think ATEC to do operational assessments. Think the Cyber Center of Excellence for ConOps and TTPs. Think the Asymmetric Warfare Group to help us understand the environment, and then the special kit that they bring to us, and then the G-Staff. And so we formed these before they became popular, the team, multifunctional team. We formed cross-functional teams. And so the solution that comes out of here may require us to, on the fly, develop ConOps and TTPs because it's never been done before. And that's okay. So one of the things we try to do in this rapid prototyping is fail. We try very hard to put something out there that is risky. It's going to fail. It may not fail from an equipment standpoint, but it may fail from a ConOps standpoint. They just weren't there. It wasn't integrated into the exercise correctly. That's okay. All right. You don't have TTPs to do this. Okay, we'll go fix that. The big thing when we go back to the board is not that Doug Wiltsey stands up there and says, this is the greatest slice of bread you've ever had. It's a team that's going in there saying, the material solution is this, the effect on force structure is this, the effect on training is this, and the effect on support is this. The solution cannot always be, it may be for a short period of time, we're going to bring a cadre of FSRs to stand behind every unit to keep this stuff moving. The Army doesn't have the ability to do that, doesn't have the dollars to be able to do that, and we want to be organic in this kind of a conflict. And so those pieces all come out, and they are as important as the technical widget does what the performance requirement is. And so you tend to have all that documentation here before you ever get started. Here we're doing it as we're moving. It's an exciting area to be in because no mistake is a bad mistake. They're all just lessons learned, and we just keep moving. And so it helps a lot. The other person I didn't mention that is in this is the unit that's going to receive this. So electronic warfare, the first unit is going to receive this is the 2nd Cavalry Regiment. They are all in. Send us stuff, we'll try it. We're going to give you a report. They do. A lot of times they're not really good reports. That's okay. But we are learning as we go. They understand the expectation of what they're going to get. They understand that this is an iterative process, and so that's how we focus on this. Go ahead. So Rob's office. So let's just talk about this for a second. I think this is where I hand it off to him. So one of the big issues that you run into in an organization like this is, how do you know everything that's being developed anywhere in the world that could possibly be applied to a military solution but wasn't invented for it? That's a heck of a question. And I'm waiting for Rob to tell me how he's going to answer that. He still hasn't, but that's okay. But the idea is to be able to reach out to anything and everything that we can obtain to be able to collaborate and exchange information with. And so what you see is Rob is building this massive network to be able to reach out to industry, to be able to work through the labs, to work through the research areas, and then other services. So we have battle rhythm events with people like the Strategic Capabilities Office, which is Will Roper. He's working big DoD problems. Those big DoD problems got to go to the services. So in some cases, we're the guys that are going to take that and do the Army side of whatever Will's doing, because it's got to be done. And if we want to do this fast, we need to be working in parallel. DIUX, you can see over here on your right, my left. Great capability to know what's going on in more of the IT space, but they're not limited to that. Autonomy is right in their wheelhouse. Artificial intelligence, right in their wheelhouse. Cyber and both cyber on the defensive side and on the offensive side, right in their wheelhouse. And so being able to touch them and their network of people helps us get a better understanding. And so what Rob can do is he can throw out ideas and we can see what comes back. And the example I give you is this. So we have broken the EW solution into 3 phases. In phase 2, we're looking at an aerial pod that has a tremendous amount of power. Where we found it was in the Air Force. It was in the Air Force Research Lab. Now there's lots of pods out there, but the one that was quick to grab was this one, and we've bought 2 with a third probably going to come next year. We wouldn't have done that had we not had the capability to reach out across the DoD and understand what everyone's working on. And so it's the power of not having to invent it ourselves, leverage what everybody else has got, put it into a solution that is more holistic and very project-focused, and bring the pieces together. So with that, I'll introduce the man of the hour. It's Rob Monto.
Thanks, sir. So absolutely. So the point of the ETO is to, like Mr. Wiltsey was saying, partner, collaborate, demonstrate high-risk, high-reward activities. And we're going to fail on things, or partner with folks to demonstrate those capabilities. And I think one of the biggest things from building out a ecosystem is bubbling up technologies that maybe going through a development cycle or a research cycle that doesn't get enough SA on it to help support an operational need or an emerging need, for instance. So you'll see a lot of capabilities that we're going to be putting out, the AI to EW and alternative PNT solutions, maybe going down a path for doing certain things in those spaces, but can we make it easier for the EWO while we're going through and doing a fly-off on different mounted solutions that are out there? Can we make it easier for them to identify the signals, or make that small enough that you could put that on an autonomous vehicle or an autonomous drone and you could get some of those signals back to a soldier or a command post, et cetera. And then lastly, we sort of serve as a filter for capabilities coming in. So industry will be bringing stuff in consistently. We've been getting a lot of information, and you'll see in the upcoming slides where we're databasing a lot of that stuff for us to go through and really catalog and characterize the different technologies that are coming in. So, as Mr. Wiltsey had talked about before, the focus of the RCO was initially that upper row, the electronic warfare, cyber, PNT, survivability, but we still see benefit there to augment that with potentially other technologies, for instance, artificial intelligence going into the electronic warfare space, cyber, seeing some augmented reality type of capability, VR, or augmenting optics, and flip that around a little bit, to benefit some of the force that's out there now and some of the needs that are needed. And you can see how some of those also support survivability. And then another one that's out here that a lot of organizations are working is the swarming and anti-swarming space. So those are technologies we'd like to leverage and see how we could build ConOps or ConOps to eventually demonstrate that capability for the Army. So I talked a little bit about Vulcan up front, and Mr. Wiltsey had mentioned it as well. So we needed a way to bring all that information together. And we worked with SOCOM, and they graciously let us use Vulcan as a source to database a lot of this information. So when you go to our Army Rapid Capabilities Office public website and submit a technology, that submits it to our Vulcan workspace within Vulcan. Allows us to see where technologies are geographically located, but also share the information with us. And what you submit, no other contractor could see that. Only the government agency could see that. And we're able to pull that information out and potentially reach out to you or see if there's a experimentation event that we'd like to bring you to, and we can pull that information from Vulcan. We're allowed to post events and attachments, et cetera. But it's a good place for you all to be on to collaborate with us as well. Like I had mentioned, the workspace that we have on there. So one of the downfalls of being accessible is we get a lot of, currently 119 submitted technologies as of 26 July. That's up to over almost 400 now to the Army RCO workspace. Again, some of the things that are coming up, we're going to be supporting Thunder Drone at SoftWorks and potentially having an ARL Open Campus event in support of potentially swarming or some other technology that we'd like to see. The website for you to get access is https://vulcan-soft.com. A little update from the last time that we had an open door session. We had put out about the acquisition toolbox that we've been building. We've been working with a lot of different folks on identifying vehicles that are out there existing that allows us to rapidly access industry, academia, et cetera, to potentially leverage a prototype or do a challenge or do a fly-off, as Mr. Wiltsey was saying. Our acquisition folks have been due diligent in reaching out to as many people as possible, and this is not a comprehensive list, but some of them on there that are very interesting to us to potentially put some things out in the future for those challenges or fly-offs or things like the C5, DIUX, the CSO that they have there, as well as DTIC through the IACS. They have a bunch of rapid prototyping vehicles that allow us to quickly access industry to put some challenges out. So this is just an update from last time and highlighting some of the ones that are interested or interesting for us. Then one of my last slides here is our open door focus for today, or the two at the top. Again, alternative PNT that we explored at AUSA Global Force, but the artificial intelligence applied to EW. And as Mr. Wiltsey said, the ability to apply AI, we're still looking to detect the signals that are out there. But as we put more and more of these sensors, the cognitive burden on the soldier becomes great, right? So the EWO is going to have all this information coming in. He himself, even though he's trained on it, won't be able to quickly access the depth and breadth of information that might be coming into him. So how can we leverage AI to help him identify if there's 5 push-to-talk radios that direction, or is it 2 push-to-talk radios in that direction? You can see the difference that you would get from an SA perspective. And then increase the efficiency and the ease of use to have anybody potentially use that and have that down to such a potential small form factor that you could have that on, like they were saying this morning, a carried infantry guy carrying a bunch of electronic warfare information or kit gets quite heavy. So can we get it small enough that we could have that type of information at the edge? Alternative position navigation, I think that's pretty much widely known. What we want to see is just alternatives out there, other thoughts. Any ideas are great, and we'll try a bunch of them. We'll put out a bunch of small bets and see what works best. And then what we had talked about last time was the big data for analytics, or big data analytics and AI for cyber ops, but upcoming for all of you all to think about and share with folks is swarming and anti-swarming technology. So for us, the ability to not just be kinetic, but non-kinetic effects, and not just the counter piece. We want to employ a swarming technology to do some kind of how do I want to say this? Want to augment not the force structure, but augment the force to have a enhanced capability for a small unit forward, or make a brigade seem like it's a division, right? So there's ways to do that. And I think that is going to be my last slide. For folks, I'll leave this up there if you want to jot any of that down. The website, email address, and again, if you go to the ETO site, we'll post these slides, upcoming events, as well as that gets you to Vulcan as well if you submit a technology. And I think we'll leave it to any questions. If anybody's got any questions on kind of where we're going or technologies we're looking to explore.
So before questions, let me just sort of augment what Rob said on a couple of things. So this thing on swarm, anti-swarm, I give you about 3 thoughts. The first is, it's an example of collaboration because it was really done by Jim Gertz down at SOCOM in collaboration with Will Roper at the Strategic Capabilities Office to build a sandbox that allows makers and hackers to come together and solve problems. What they offered to us was the opportunity for us to participate, which is a great thing. And so one of the charges that we have is not only do strategic gaps, we're a disruptive technologies. And so this is a disruptive technology that we're collaborating with other folks because it limits how much money we have to put in because we don't have to build this facility. It creates an environment that we can learn from what Special Forces is trying to do with it. Maybe we scale that, maybe we come at it from a completely different lens. But the venue is there to allow us to explore that. And so that's an area that where both you see collaboration, but also an opportunity to just get whatever ideas out there on the table. The second thing is Rob talked about Vulcan, and I believe this is true, and I should know the answer to this question, but I don't. When it's on Vulcan, the SOCOM guys can see the data that's loaded for us. And so by you putting it on the RCO website or the RCO partition of Vulcan, they can see it also. And so if it's something that allows, so it gets you a little more exposure for an idea. And the way they've broken it into buckets, everything from small arms and modular handguns to electronic warfare equipment and UAVs and razors and all kinds of stuff they have out there. And so in those areas, if they've got a need for electronic warfare and we've got stuff in there, they go look at it. You may get a phone call from them that says, "I saw this. I'd like you to come talk to us." So the point is, it's an opportunity. And the last on artificial intelligence. So one of the stumbling blocks we've gone to, or it's not a stumbling block, but one of the constraints that we've obviously seen is electronic warfare officers have to be behind every screen to look at this waterfall chart. How do you make that with a high level of confidence? Just give me an answer that it's a push-to-talk radio and it's over there. Then you can put anybody behind this. What does that allow us to do? It allows us now, because we're using multi-purpose soldiers to do this, you can increase the density of the number of sensors you have out there. Now you're constrained by bandwidth. You're constrained by the C2 system. That's okay. Let's get to that point. And so one of the questions that was brought up by one of our really smart engineers to me today, and I didn't have an answer for him, but I'm going to ask you guys for the answer, is the whole thing of artificial intelligence is you need a training set that's good enough to allow you to train. So you're going to be as accurate as the training set is. One of the questions we're going to ask is, what training set do you think you need? Now, you won't know that answer. You don't have to know that answer today, but what we would like is if you come to some left and right limit that your experience says, this is going to get you this level of accuracy, something this big is going to get you this much, and this is the amount of time we need to run regression. I'm an old guy, so we call it regression test. That would be very helpful. So with that, hopefully that helps clarify some of these pieces. So with that, are there any questions?
So today's one-on-ones, what's the point?
So there was a widely distributed invite about one-on-ones that were coming up. We do, I think, have one space open right now for one-on-ones. I think it's in the EWAI. Yeah, EWAI. And then if there's folks here that want to have a potential one-on-one session, please get with Nancy over here.
Nancy, raise your hand.
To put you on a list, and we'll engage with you probably after TechNet here, but we will definitely reach out to you.
Other questions? Yeah.
The contractor observation, not that anyone would do anything like this ever, but you're saying that's completely firewall, government eyes only, because the Air Force likes to offer up the same descriptor for their for some of their cyber solutions, and it is not the case. So that causes a little bit of concern if we're throwing IP over the fence and don't really know where it ends up.
Oh, no, so respect the concern. We'll go check, because we understand from the SOCOM guys, that's the way it's set up. Now, what I also can't tell you is, does CETA support fit inside the government side? My assumption is yes, but they've got to have all the NDAs in place. But we can pull a thread on that. It's a fair concern. Other questions? From the back.
I was just wondering, is there any push towards a joint acquisitions core type idea? So that way, us, the Air Force, and the Navy are not all trying to create the exact same piece of equipment. Like us, like the Army and the Marine Corps do 556.
I do not know how I'm going to answer that question. The answer is no. Not that it's not a bad idea. I think there are some areas where we're trying to get at some of that just through collaboration and understanding what's the Navy do. So EW is really, if you broke it in the service, it's responsibility of the United States Navy. Now, the issue is, if you listen to the chief and you hear the way he defines the next war, it's going to be heavily contested. There will not be any air support. There may not be any air support, period. We've got to have to fight this out on the ground. So we have to be able to give that capability local to the brigade and below. But to answer it, I'll give you the example in EW. We went over to the Air Force RCO. We go over there periodically and said, this is the problem we're working on. Out of the blue, they say, how would you like it if we could give you, off of some of the Air Force assets, we could give you a precise positioning? Of course I want precise positioning, especially the big emitters. They want the data we're pulling. So can we do an exchange? And so by doing that, what it allows us to do is those kind of joint things. By going out and talking to folks, what we basically say is, this is what we're doing, what are you doing? They're sharing. It's not a formal process. We're trying to just make sure two things. One, that we don't spend nickels on something somebody else has already done. I just want to go borrow it. And then the second is also make sure that we're not stepping on each other, because we can do that pretty quick. Make sense? Sorry, couldn't answer it right. Yeah. Yes?
Rob Kennedy. Since you're solving IPPLs or getting after IPPLs from COCOMs, wouldn't that be OSD funding?
So it's not. What I would tell you is the way that we're looking at IPPLs, but they're really coming in as ONSs. They're coming in as joint urgent or joint emerging, but they're coming in as ONSs, and that's how we're addressing them. So I got one from USFK, I got one from USER. Okay. Yeah, question back here.
How will the flyovers be sent to the contractors?
How will we do them? I'll give you conceptually how to do them. The details, let the engineers that are actually going to do it, we'll have to put that out. But basically what we want to do is we want to take a mounted system. We've got to be able to integrate it in the vehicle somehow. And we've got a team that works at Fort Bliss that knows how to integrate pretty much anything on anything. And so I'm not so worried about you being able to do that. We've got to figure out how we do that. But the idea is, the way they ran the dismounted is they put a bunch of emitters out in an area. and they had folks move, in maneuver, it had them move and see if they could both find them and then could they position them. All right. Now, position is a relative term, and we've got to get at that. The more as I said before, position's a good thing. It's a great thing, especially for the really high-priced ones. But on the other hand, if it takes a massive integration effort, we're probably not going to be able to do it. I might consider doing that in a different way. So the idea is a bunch of emitters out. We'll score you against. You're going to go along a specific path in the vehicle. Did you find it? Did you not? And could you recognize it? And could you tell us where it was? That's, I think, pretty much how we're going to do it.
And where will the notifications really be put out?
That's a great question. Megan, are we going to do FedBizOps? Do you know FedBizOps? Yeah. Okay. Oh, agreed. So Colonel Joe Capabianco up here, Joe Cap was just made a comment, which is absolutely right. The other thing we want to leverage is if you got test data from the Air Force, from the Marines, from anybody, bring it. We're real interested in it. Okay.
Desert burn off, but there's several events already structured.
Right.
To go after a certain niche.
Right, we would take these capabilities to something that's already existing. We want to stand something completely separate up to do that as well.
Other questions? Going once. No.
Let me ask on your 1 to 5 year timeline, and I know the answer is it depends, but like what entry TRL are you guys kind of looking for sweet spot for technologies?
0 to 9. No. I had a little facetious there. I would probably say 4 is probably the lowest we would go. We're not really interested in developing something. What we're interested in is accelerating its development if we have to, and then integrating it. And dealing with the warts of doing that fast because there's a real need for it. I just don't see us, I can see us writing scripts. I can't see us writing code, kind of thing.
And if I could augment that, sir, from an ETO perspective, we like to hear any of those technologies, like Mr. Wiltsey was saying, 0 to 9, we could potentially link you up with folks in CERDEC or some other organization that might be working this domain area, and then we would watch it as it kind of progresses within those communities.
So the other reason I say 0 to 9 is that it may be a 5 in a completely different application, and it just was never applied to this. And so that's a very fast ramp if we can do it. Other questions? Yeah.
Sir, I assume that because some of these topics have been explored already, they're not closed to conversations at this point?
Nothing is closed to conversation. Nothing is ever closed to conversation. Okay.
Going once?
Yeah, going once, going twice. Oh,
Nope.
there we go.
Why not? The swarming industry day you mentioned earlier, when was that going to be?
So Thunderdrome.
So there's an activity that's SOCOM's running through their SoftWorks activity or entity. It's called Thunder Drone. Right now, they're having their first rapid prototyping event that's going on. That's closing sometime in November. They're going to have a couple throughout the year that they're looking for technologies to come to, and we're participating in the fact of being interagency to provide scenarios, to look at technologies that are coming through that. And like Mr. Wiltzer was saying, we're leveraging these communities that are doing these things, and we're going to try to partner with them to potentially bring it to the conventional force if we can.
But what I would tell you is, so SoftWorks is an entity between SOCOM and industry. If you've got something, they don't want to wait until their next event. If you want to reach out and touch them, they will talk to you because it's really important to them to be able to understand everything. So.
Yeah, I think if you just Google softworks.org, you'll find their site, and they have a contact info, and they also have a Vulcan page on where you could submit technologies to them as well.
Try it again. So going once, going twice. Thanks for coming. We really appreciate it, and I look forward to the one-on-ones that are later today. Thank you.
What's the last office you said that you Googled? Okay, yeah. Absolutely. So for what we're doing, so I'm going to prepare tomorrow. Okay. Because where I think my head is, there's pizza companies. Well, I agree. So let's get a look at it and see what frequency on. All that's got to be factored in. I think that's exactly. Good. Great to meet you. Do you know?
No, hey, Joe Capabianco.
Cancun. I don't think we've ever met. I'm taking TR.
Oh, very good. I'm with RCO. Okay. Thank you.
He's the chief of staff.
He's chief of staff.
He runs the show.
I've been in the job since June. I just came over from some G3 or something.
Oh, all right.
And then we just got Mike Road.
Mike,
Yeah, so Mike's going to be in our shop. And Mike's here.
He is here.
And he's trying to get all that connectivity with you guys.
when I heard you guys were briefing,